In this exercise, we're going to apply some room names with using text, and we will do some dimensioning as well. At the moment, we're going to put the text and dimensioning inside of model space. You can actually put it in paper space too, which we haven't talked about yet in the course. There's advantages and disadvantages to both ways, but for now, just for clarity, rather than getting too deep into paper space right now, we're just going to do the text and dimensions in our model space. So here I have our ground floor plan. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a textile. So we type ST, press space or enter. And I have something in there already, but let's create a new one. So we'll click on the new button. Let's call this room names. And click OK. Alright, we'll leave that font at Arial. You can change that to something else if you like. We're not going to use annotative at this stage, but we might set the height perhaps to 350, and we'll leave the width factor at 1 and everything else just the way it is. And we'll click apply, and we'll click close. Another thing I've already done, but you could do as well, is create a layer for your text, which is always a good idea. So to do that, you can click on the Layer Properties Manager button, and you can click here to create a new layer. I've already got one in here called A Text. So I'm just going to select that and click on the green tick to make that current, and we can close the window. Of course, we can also pick the layers from our drop down window here. So now we're on our correct layer, and we've set our textile, and we've set it to current, I believe. Let's just double check that. ST style room name set current, so it is current. Okay, now what we're going to use is, if you remember the previous lessons, there's different types of text that we can use, but I generally always stick with M text. So we'll type MT and press the space or enter key, and it's going to ask us for a first point. So I'm going to click here, and then it's asked for another point, and I'm going to drag the window and then click the left click. Now it asks us for our text. So this is, I guess we'll call it a living room. So we'll type living. Actually, I might put the caps lock on. And then we can press OK. And we have our living. If you remember from earlier lessons as well, about these grips, about how we work out the justification and of where this grip is, I actually have my properties window open here on the left here. If your property windows is not open, hold down the control key and press the number 1 on your keyboard to bring it up. Or you could right click and go down to properties. And at the moment it's on top left, and generally for room names I find that I use middle center. I just find it a lot easier to center the text on the room. We could now, to create the other room names, we could type the MT for mtext again command, or we could select the text, left click the grip, so it's now a hot grip. We can press the space key. If you look at the command prompt, it's asking us now to move. If we type C and then press space or enter, we can now just click and copy where we want these room names to be. And I find that's a quick method, and then we can just go and edit the text later on. Actually, we might grab one more and put one over here as well. So to edit the text, we can just double click on it. So just double left click and we're inside, and we can change that to perhaps just, we'll call it sitting. And we can press the OK key. And here we might call this bedroom. And just double click again on the text, we'll type entry. Also make sure that when you're inside this editor window, that you don't press the escape key. If I press the escape key, it's going to ask me if I want to save changes. In this case, it has asked me. If somebody's used your computer before and said that, clicked on the always perform the current choice, then clicking escape could mean that you'd get out of the text. Not so much of a problem for just one word, but if you've written a whole bunch of text and you accidentally get out of that by pressing escape, it's very much a big waste of time. All that effort you put into writing the text out. So bedroom, and this is our laundry, so we'll just abbreviate that. And this is our toilet or water closet, so WC, and our bath, that's bath. Okay, so that was pretty easy, just putting in our text. We could create another textile if we wanted to for the stairs to have smaller text, so to do that we could just type ST and press space or enter, and we could create a new textile, and we could just call it small text. Okay, and click OK, and perhaps we'll change the height of that small text to maybe, I don't know, 175, and select set current, and we'll click yes, we want to do that. Click close. Now if we type MT for our M text, and I could type UP for up, you can see that we now have a smaller textile. We could have used the same textile as this one here and then edited the height in our properties window over here where it says 350. If I changed that to 200, we could change it that way. I'll change it back to 350. Now another thing I want to introduce you to, I didn't do that in the other lessons, and I haven't gone much into dimension style, well, not so much dimension styles, but dimensions themselves, that if we go up to dimension, there is something up here which is called a leader, and where is that on the menu here? It's, you know, I've got it's got multi-leader, that's what it's called. Now what that is an arrow, and asks you for a point, and it just follows around, basically, and allows you to enter text at the end of it. We haven't actually set that up at this stage. Another way to type it is Q leader, and what I find is I can create an arrow. In this case it's not allowed me to do it. It's only done 2 lines. You can edit that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that. We're going to set that up. So type Q leader at your command prompt, and as you can see at the bottom, then it asks you for settings. So type S for settings, and it asks if you want to add text at the end of the arrow thing that we just created. In this case, we're going to click none, and here it's going to ask us if we want a straight line or a spline. We'll leave it at straight for now. I'll show you the difference between the two. And this is the number of points. So I'm going to click on no limit, so we can click as many times as we like. Now it also asks you for the type of arrowhead that you'd like. I'm just going to leave it on right angle, and I'm just going to leave these two that way they're set. Now I'll show you how it works. I'm just going to click here and here, and then I can press space or enter to finish the command. And as you can see, it's a type of line. It's all like a polyline, except that it's put a little arrowhead on the end, and I find that very useful for doing stairs. Just saves a lot of time than manually having to draw it all in. If we go back to the Q leader command again, and we'll go to S for settings, space and enter. This time we're going to click on spline, and I want to show you the difference. So if I was to click on these same lines, you can see that it's actually created a sort of wiggly line. Now you might wonder why you do that. Probably not so much in a stairs. Stairs I generally keep a sort of very angular, orthogonal type of line type. But sometimes people try to emulate a hand-drawn drawing. So you might use this sort of curved spline on a section drawing when you're doing notation. The other thing you can actually do, we'll go back to the Q leader command again, and we'll go to S for settings. So I'm going to put that back on the straight. The thing here about the number of points, what I clicked on no limit, that means if I just move this slightly to the side here, that when I see that's the first point, where the start of the arrow is the first point, that would be the second point, that'd be the third point, that'd be a fourth point. If I've got that set to 3, so I'd go 1, 2, 3, and then it stops. If you remember the first time we did it, that's what happened. No limit allows me to keep clicking around as much as I like. You can set the limit to what you'd like. I like no limit. It gives me more flexibility. Going back to here, to this tab here, over here, the annotation tab, we can actually have an M text at the end of the letter. So, and ask you a few other options here, whether you want it prompt for width or not. We'll just untick that, and let's just try that out now. So, okay, click, and then we'll right click. Now it's asking for some text. If I typed UP, command prompt, press enter twice, you can see now that the text has come out with the leader, and so it automatically adds it. It depends on how you want to work with it. I generally find that that I prefer to just keep the text separate, but you know, there's different ways you can work with it. The other thing we're going to do now is look at dimensioning our floor plan, just some basic dimensions. So if you remember, if we go up to Format, Dimension Style, we can create our dimension style. So hopefully you've saved the dimension style from the previous lesson. If not, maybe look through that again and create a new dimension style. I have two already set here, NTF model space and NTF paper space. The difference between the two basically is they're exactly the same the way they look, except that one is designed for the units of model space and one's designed for the units of paper space. And since we're working in model space, I'm going to select the model space one, and I'm going to set current. So it's now set to current, and I can close that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create some dimensions. So the basic dimension, if we go up to our dimension menu, is linear. That's a very basic dimension that you'd probably use most of, more than any others. So I'm going to left click that. Now it's going to ask me for the first point of my well, the first point of the building I want to start dimensioning. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to drag the dimension out to about here. So that's our first dimension. Something you can actually do is actually to set up some lines. I'm going to draw a line down here, and then I'm going to offset that line perhaps 1500. And what that means is when I'm dragging out my dimensions, I can actually have them always, you know, perfectly spaced apart. So this first dimension line is just that width of wall. So I'm going to go back to my linear dimension, and I'm going to click here down to this opening, and you see now I can snap onto this line that I've drawn, which makes it a lot easier to line up the dimensions. So if you don't have a snap on, make sure you've pressed your F3 key on your keyboard to turn on snaps, and I'm just going to press space or enter to redo the command, and space or enter to redo the command. Now I'm not going to get into drafting conventions about, you know, what dimension or what opening to what to dimension first. You know, whether you dimension the windows first or you do the walls. It's that's up to you, your standards. Perhaps it's different in your country. You might have certain standards. I find people just seem to do whatever they like. I've worked at different places over the years that have their own preference about how they prefer to have things. I don't think it really matters that much at the end of the day. As long as the dimensions are there, they can build off it. That's the important thing. So what I can do now is I can dimension from here to here for the window, and as you can see now I can snap onto that other line that I have there, and I'm just pressing the space bar to restart the command each time, and we just almost finished this wall here. As I said, I'm not going to get involved too much with worrying about how people prefer to lay these things out. Well, we do one overall dimension from here all the way up to here, and we'll put it to there. So these are the dimensions I've basically done so far. I'm just going to delete these lines. The dimensions I've done basically so far are pretty much just for the external walls. We could actually technically grab all this, or move it a little bit across, maybe I'll draw another line and offset it another 1500, or another 2 just in case, and then we could actually dimension the thickness of the walls, which is obviously an important thing to do as well. So these are cavity walls here, so we've got a stud wall and brick. Actually, I don't want to do that. I want to go to here, and we could put a dimension from there to there, and up to here. So yeah, so 240 mil walls. I'll just leave that. So we've got a 90 mil stud wall, 40 millimeter cavity, and a 110 mil thick brick. I'll dimension this wall too. So that's a 90 mil stud wall. I can actually just put a dimension in here. As I said, look, it depends on how you want to do it. We're not going to get too involved in that in the course. That's a drafting sort of thing to talk about in terms of standards. So I'm just giving you an idea about actually how to go about it. So I could probably just delete that there, and with the room width, I mean, we could dimension. Oh, maybe I will put one more line in there. I'll move that over 1500. I'll drag that down. Alright. And we'll do the room size. And we'll go to 90 again. So, alright, so we've got some of our room sizes there, and we could do the same again with the well, horizontal sort of dimension lines. I'll put one in here. So 1200, and I'm going to draw some lines here again, and we're going to offset them 1500. Okay, and with these garage walls, these are 210 mil. Oh, sorry, 230 mil. So that's 2 110 brickworks with a 10 mil cavity. So these are sort of basic things for dimensions in Australia anyway. Your country may be different. You might build completely differently. I don't know. I've seen some different things internationally. So just apply these sort of same ideas to your own country dimensions and for material thicknesses. And actually, I might move this one up here, move that back down 1500, and there we go. So okay, so we'll just leave that there for now. And as you can see, we just go around dimensioning the whole lot. It's pretty straightforward. With a sort of house like this, at least with the floor plan, the basic dimension you really are going to use is the one we've been using, is the linear dimension. In the sections, we may use other dimensions, such as the angular one. Sometimes I have had to use angular for floor plans where the walls might be angled, or the building's angled to the site boundary somewhat, so you need to let people know what the angle of that is. We'll just do that anyway. There's nothing specifically in here that's angled that we need to do, but what I'm going to draw is, I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees. Now we go up to our dimension, and we go to angular. We can select the first line, and then ask for the second line, and there you go, it's 30 degrees, just what I rotated that line at. And that's the basics of the angular. They're the main two that you probably use more than anything else, is the linear and the angular. There are other dimensions. I don't tend to find I really need to use them much. If you did want to have a look, there is one in here called baseline. Ask you for your initial dimension. So we could say this is our baseline dimension, and it'll just keep doing dimensions along. As you can see, where I click, all from that starting point. I don't tend to use that, and you got to set that up anyway. I'm going to erase those. So this is the basics of setting up the dimensions. I'm going to continue on with it. You could stop the video here if you like and continue on with your own. So with your own floor plan if you like. I think, yeah, we're going to need all this sort of setup eventually anyway, so I'm going to continue on. We're going to draw some more lines here. I may have missed some dimensions whilst doing this, but as I've said, it's not really about so much being accurate with this right this moment. It's more just giving you an understanding about how to go about doing these dimension lines. As you can see, I've been able to create these dimension lines very quickly because I started one dimension, and then every time I finish doing the dimension, I've just been able to press the space bar or enter key to restart the same command, which is quick and easy to do. So, and sometimes it's something that annoys me is, as you can see, there's a bit of a space between this 240 and that horizontal line. Sometimes what I do is I just type S for stretch, press space or enter, drag over it, and then I can move those up. So you can do that if you like. It's up to you. It's just something that's always annoyed me, and I like to try and get that straight. So okay. And I know I've missed the windows there. I might move these down 1500. Offset another 1500, and we'll put the windows in. Oop, didn't miss that one there. Didn't quite get that right. Oh, not clicking on the right. There we go. Okay. Well, we could just, there we go, add another dimension there if we wanted to. In reality, I would actually do this a bit different if I was really setting up the dimensions, but for the sake of the exercise, and we can just offset another few lines. So there. Oops, I've moved it to the wrong spot. So what I'm going to do is select that, and I'm going to select the grip. I'm going to drag that over to there. That's what I want us to do. I'm going to go back to my dimension. Okay, and I press space. Go to there. And space again. Now with this video, I'm only going to do the ground floor plan dimensioning on the video. You can take your time to do the first floor plan at your leisure. And just in terms of drafting too, as you can see, these 90mm walls, for instance, that's the actual thickness of the timber wall. It doesn't include the lining of the plasterboard, or if you're in America, I think you call it drywall. Okay, and we could do the. I've done the window openings again. Just going to move all that across to there. And we'll do the windows. Windows and doors. That's not the right dimension there. Got a funny dimension there. I'm not sure exactly why. Okay, so that's those basic dimensions. Often you need to dimension too internally. Like I could dimension this wall here to this for this door, and as you can see we've got a thick wall here. That's a double stud wall, so 290s is 180mm. You may have noticed what I did there. I just grabbed the grip and I moved that text, and I can draw a little line in there if I wanted to. And we could just put 90mm there. I'm going to again drag that out of the way. That's not sitting on the lines. We've got a robe. And we've dimensioned that 90mm there, so that's good. And maybe the landing for the stairs. We didn't dimension. Actually, we might do a dimension for the stair here as well. This should be equal. It's slightly off there. There we go, it's equal. And put a dimension in here. We haven't actually dimensioned the bedrooms at all. We could dimension. We could dimension them in here. Just trying to think of the best place to put them. Perhaps what we might do is move all this up a little bit, and we're going to draw a line and offset that again, 1500. Something I will show you with the dimensions as well is that we can add text to them. So we'll do that in a moment. That's our hallway. Oops. Oops, click on there. Okay. Now, as you can see, we've got these. This dimension here is quite a distance from where the bedroom is in the laundry. So what we can do is we type ED, press, or then ask us to click something. We want to edit something. So ED, press your space bar, and click on the dimension. And as you can see, it's highlighted. If I just press my arrow key on the right, and then press space, I can then type bedroom, and press OK. And now we've added text to our dimension. Something else I'll show you too is if I could edit this dimension. Say it was out by 1mm, it was 3301, but I wanted it to be 3300. Well, it is 3300 at the moment, but I could change it to 3350 if I wanted to without changing the wall. And it's sort of cheated, and it's not recommended, but sometimes it's a bit of a time saver than redrawing things. But we're going to go back and edit that. So ED space or enter, and if you see, if I delete that and press OK, we've lost our dimension line altogether, our dimension altogether. You could just type back in 3300, or what you can do is if you hold down your shift key and press the little arrow keys, I don't know if you saw that, but if I press down the first one and if I press shift, I'm going to put a space, those two keys on your keyboard, when they're together, the dimension comes back and it makes it dynamic again. So what that means is if I grab the little grip and drag it, it'll change the dimension, as you can see there. So that's a handy little trick to know about. So I'm going to leave that here for now, and you can continue on dimensioning as you feel the need, and perhaps maybe dimension your first floor plan, and then we'll move on.